So I have been keeping this tab open on my browser for the last 3 days with a Hafiz poem that I can't wait to share with you. It's beautiful. So I'm going to read it and talk about it a bit more. But first, I kind of wanted to talk about the fact that we switch sometimes back and forth between the idea of God and bhakti or devotional practices and Advaita. And the last time in my last talk, I kind of contrasted the two, and I didn't want to give the wrong idea that the two are a contrast, that they are separate things, and to share a little bit about how they work together. You know, the ultimate realization is one without a second. But until you reach that realization, you've created an artificial sense of self. You've blocked off with your ego a small sense of I. And that part of this universe that you've considered to be not you is actually God. And it's not an imaginary thing, because the imaginary thing in that scenario is you as the ego. And so it is God that is real ultimately, and it is God that you dissolve into. It's not that you can say, I am that, and you are going to become this big great I of Advaita, the one without a second happens to be you, you are God. Not how it happens. We come to realize that it's not God that disappears, but it's we that disappear. And that scenario is very important to understand, because the divine is real. And when we say God, it's never a meaningless word, because it's a pointer. It points out a concept that can't fit in mind. So we're not describing something that can be described. We're pointing at something that is beyond description. So God, we all have to deal with in our own way and conceive of in our own way. And all of those ways are reasonable and fine for where we are. You know, as we grow, we learn more. As the mind expands, we conceive more. But ultimately, we find it too small to hold even the image of God and ourself at one time, and we have to let go. And that's when we find this reality. So I say that because a lot of times we think that this idea of God is a weakness, or this idea of God is a child's play. But it's not. It's a very real and central part of the ultimate realization of all of the great sages in the world, the religious and non-religious, that ultimately there is this one without a second. So having said that, this relationship that we have with other, which is very much what I'm referring to when I talk about the woods and the beauty and the love that I find here and the nourishment that I get in being out here. This other, the woods, which is not me, is a manifestation of that divine. And the relationship with God is a relationship with anything that's other from myself. It's a relationship with every individual on the planet. It's a relationship with every plant, animal, rock, stone, breath of air, moment of mood, whatever it is. That's part of that infinite, eternal relationship, whose nature is love, whose nature is wisdom, whose nature is being. And the discovery of that and the development of that unity, of that intimacy with this isness, is my very favorite part of the experience of growing and learning. So in this poem by Hafiz and translated, of course, by Daniel Ladinsky, it's called Let Me Become Your Beautiful Lover. And it goes like this. Let thought become the beautiful woman. Cultivate your mind and your heart to that depth that it can give you everything a warm body can. Why just keep making love with God's child, with form, when the friend himself is standing before us, so open-armed? My dear, let prayer become your beautiful lover, and become free. Become free of this whole world like Hafiz. So this notion of freedom is through that relationship, through that marriage. It's through a marriage in duality between you and anything you never knew to be you, that this intimacy is attained. Let that infinity be to you the particulars that you run after now, to imitate that union, to imitate that bliss, that pleasure, that joy, that happiness, that power, that contentment, whatever it might be. It's the wholeness of things that will give you what you're looking for, not the particulars. Let prayer become that beautiful woman. Don't limit yourself to the child of God, the form, this individuation. Look for that which everything points to, the quiet of the forest, the beauty of the trees, the challenge of a day, the joy of being. It's yours. Open to it.